So, let me get this straight. You're in trouble with the US government again.
The ATF.
Right, the ATF. Because you ordered an intercontinental ballistic missile off of Amazon.
Hey, it's my right as a US citizen to keep and bear arms.
Drake, that's a thermonuclear warhead. That's beyond illegal.
We call that tyranny, but go on.
So instead of surrendering the missile or laying low, you're hiring a wizard off of Craigslist to perform magical plastic surgery on you to change your appearance, because you're too much of an attention-seeking narcissist that you can't even stand the thought of leaving the public eye.
That is correct, yes. Hello, I am the wizard. I do wizard things.
That's insane.
Well, firstly, the word you're looking for is based. And secondly, the government can suck my fat—
Alakablam!
Drake, how do you feel?
Oh my god. I feel like I want my money back. Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. Hope you all enjoy my new look. The old Drake was charming, but there was definitely something to be desired. Oh, but you didn't come here to hear me prattle on about my Drakeover. You came to hear a story. Well, lucky for all of you, today I have a horror story for you to enjoy. One of the most entertaining parts of creating characters in RPGs is writing their backstory. Where did they come from? Where did they go? Are they, in fact, named Cotton Eye Joe? The answers to all these questions and more are all up to you as you give life to your perfect creation. But there's no denying that some players tend to get a little bit too excited about writing a backstory. While I'm one of the few DMs who actually encourages their players to write backstories the length of Moby Dick, even I know that there is a very definite line that shouldn't be crossed. Today's story stars a player whose mix of ignorance and wishful thinking leads them into believing that it's okay for their character to be the literal son of Satan. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPG-Horror-Stories. Enjoy. Today's story comes to us from Reddit user Red Hot Owl, and is titled, Player Wants to Play as the Literal Spawn of Satan. Is surprised when rejected. Okay, I will try to keep this shorter than usual. So my friend's DMing a custom setting that we designed together. You can read my previous story for a more detailed description if interested. But I will quickly summarize the relevant parts here. Basically, it's a dark fantasy world where the players control a squad of artificially created half-monster hybrids, specifically designed by humans for combating other monsters. So, for example, the most commonly utilized hybrids are creatures known as defanged, which are essentially artificially created vampires that exclusively crave the blood of other vampiric entities. Once, if ever, their purpose is fulfilled, they will wither away and die out as well. Pretty much every hybrid has some sort of failsafe in their design that ensures their compliance. Think DC's Suicide Squad and add a grimdark aesthetic to it. I will refer to my friend by his full former WoW username, LoverboyXXX, which I refuse to abbreviate because forcing people to read the whole thing out is hilarious to me. I'm a fully functioning adult, I swear. Recently, LoverboyXXX wanted to expand and diversify his player roster, since most of his current players, with the exception of one, are playing defanged characters. That's not necessarily a bad thing since they all play them well, but it is a shame considering the amount of effort he put into the world. Personally, I think he's just feeling guilty that he made me come up with all these races and factions that nobody ended up playing. But you know, that's just a hunch. So he decided to put up an ad on Discord, stating exactly what he was looking for. For context, it is a large server that hosts a variety of TTRPG games, each with their own dedicated channels. His only requirements were for any potential player to familiarize themselves with the basics of the lore, and to choose a species that isn't a defanged. Straightforward enough, right? At least, most of the other candidates thought so. That is, with the exception of one, who we shall call Succula. Succula was one of the last people to respond to the ad, by which point Loverboy XXX had already filled the desired slot in his party. However, Succula was particularly enthusiastic, emphasizing that they were a big fan of classic horror, and that they had been looking for a setting like this one for a while. Being the stern yet merciful god he is, Loverboy XXX let them know that he could free up an extra slot, and asked them to submit their character's backstory for review so he could figure out how to integrate them into the current plot. Also, yes, he once again made it abundantly clear that he was no longer accepting vampire characters. Other than that, all other playable, emphasis on playable, species and classes were fine. 2 days go by since their last interaction, and no word from Succula. Loverboy XXX figured that they were either busy or really committed to writing out a detailed backstory. The group were taking a break that weekend, so he had no reason to rush them. On the following Monday, just before heading to bed, he was messaged by Succula, who provided a Google Docs link for their newly created character. Upon opening said link, our unfortunate protagonist was greeted by walls upon walls of solid text. The glow of the screen illuminated his wary and unreasonably handsome face. His eyes were stung from the bright red letters inscribed upon a black background, which utilized a suitably edgy font. Every fiber of his being was telling him to stop, to look away before it was too late, and yet his morbid curiosity got the better of him. And so, against his better judgment, he read on. So I know that I'm in the minority here, but I actually really enjoy when players have really long and in-depth backstories. To me, a long and well-thought-out backstory that incorporates elements of a DM's world is one of the best signs of commitment to a campaign. 100% of the time, I would choose a player who writes a backstory the length of Homer's Odyssey over some schmuck who just shows up to session 1 and says, yeah, this is my barbarian, his name is Craig. I'm the type of DM who likes to involve my players in my world building. So I think it's great when my players work with me to create entire new settings and entire new characters through their characters' backstories. My players help me piece together a world much like emaciated children working in sweatshops piece together LeBron James's shoes. Which is awesome. The world-building part, not the LeBron James part. I may be chaotic evil, but I do not condone child labor. Anyways, back on topic. I love a good backstory. But, and this is a dummy thick but, I also believe that a novel-length backstory can also be a huge red flag. While I believe a massive backstory is a sign of involvement in a campaign, it could also mean the opposite. The player could easily be subconsciously saying, yeah, the story you guys are telling is cool, but this is my story, and I'd like it to be a continuation of the 50-page novel I spent 5 weeks writing. the climax of your character's story should not be in your backstory. It should be in the game you're playing with your party. The purpose of a backstory is to explain why a character has chosen to be an adventurer in the first place. Unless you have a DM like me who enjoys reading novel-length backstories, and I must stress that I am in the minority, you really shouldn't go overboard with what you bring to Session 0. A good backstory should answer 3 questions. Who are you? Why are you the way that you are? And why are you choosing to be an adventurer? And maybe for good measure, cap it at like 1 or 2 pages. Because let's be real, reading is for f***ing nerds. Now, I don't think that it would be right for me to copy-paste the entirety of this person's sheet. So I will just recount what I think are the most noteworthy parts. For one, I'm not sure whether they even read any of the lore. We have a basic list of bullet points that's only like 1,000 characters long. That's only half of Discord's character limit per post. Succula outright stated that they were a fully fledged vampire. Not even the world's version of it. Just a classical sleeps in a coffin and hangs from the rafters kind of vampire. Red eyes and long cape included. I'm not throwing shade at the stereotypical archetype, just not what we were going for. Second, instead of choosing a class, they went ahead and made up one of their own. Well, okay, technically they chose a rogue as their profession, but they also added that they were capable of enhancing their attacks with vampiric magic. To answer your question, no, we did not have anything called vampiric magic in our setting. Hell, even the quintessential D&D style blood magic wasn't fully introduced yet. Succula was able to turn into a bat and a wolf at will, because of course they were. And my personal favorite, they were able to make other characters into their personal thralls. Overpowered, unreasonable, yes, but not entirely unsalvageable. So far. After all, Loverboy XXX usually tweaks his class system a bit to accommodate players. And while the fact that this person clearly hadn't bothered to read any of the rules was annoying, perhaps a compromise could yet be reached. Perhaps Succula could have played some deluded theatrical antagonist, thinking himself an incarnation of Dracula himself, the legend of whom does canonically exist in the world. Well, all such inclinations were dashed as soon Loverboy XXX got further into the backstory. See, Succula's character wasn't born, conventionally speaking. Oh no, that would be too predictable, too tame. Instead, they were actually among the first vampires to ever exist, formed from the sizzling blood pools of hell itself. You can probably already guess who their father is proposed to be. You've read the title. When Loverboy XXX told me about this, my first thought was that this person had to be taking the piss. But then I read it and, well, I can't be 100% certain they weren't just trolling. It was written in such a genuine way that I can't help but think that they were being for real. They even disputed their decline, saying that it made sense for a character like theirs to exist. Gotta love it when people lecture you and try to educate you on your own setting. But of course, Loverboy XXX was the one being unreasonable for not letting them play their bootleg Castlevania reject. Besides, they were actually doing us a favor by contributing to the established, and in their opinion, mundane lore. Internal logic be damned, it's all about that power fantasy, baby! Needless to say, they left soon after throwing their little tantrum. It's not really a horror experience as much as I just found it ridiculous and wanted to share it. Sure, Succula was being sort of an ass at the end, and their entitlement and expectations were less than reasonable. But they weren't some comically awful cartoon villain either. TLDR. Player submits an edgy Mary Sue character for approval and is surprised when it gets rejected. Doesn't even get to session 0. End of story. You know, you gotta be a special kind of that guy if you don't even make it to session 0. To be honest, I wish all that guys were like this and revealed their true colors long before the game even started. Efficiency is key, people! Although, if that were the case, I'd probably be out of the job, so on second thought, keep doing what you're doing. Now before we go, let's take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake. Y'all remember this piece of Den of the Drake history, right? If anyone tries to mount me, I will cut them, and I will cut them f***ing deep. Well, viewer TalrexArt has submitted this piece to explain the origins of my iconic switchblade. You know, when I wrote that joke, I had no idea that so many of you would latch onto it, but between the tax evasion, furry trolling, and YouTube play button, I really shouldn't be surprised. Behold, foul demon, Switch Caliber! This blade has been blessed by the gods themselves. Only the purest of hearts may hold it in their grasp. Now I will... Ooh, I'll give you $20 for it. Thank you again, TalrexArt, for submitting your art. If you want to see your artwork featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my About section. It means the world to me that I can create content that inspires artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, Patreon and merchandise links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.